Welcome. This is Holochats Glass Bead game number 3. And I'm here with Victor and Tristan, and I'm Anders. And we're going to be playing the Glass Bead game on MetaMaps. So we can actually turn off our video because we're going to be looking at the map most of the time. And I'll screen share so that people watching the recording can look at the map. But you guys look on your own screens. And yeah, there's still a lot of white noise in your mic, Victor.
All right.
Can you guys see the map?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So let's start by adding ourselves. So you double click on the background. I think you're both familiar with MetaMaps. And add a node for yourself. I'll go over here. Cool, the white noise is gone, Victor. I don't know if you're muted.
I'm muted.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, that works. It's fine if it's just while you're talking. Thank you. Cool, and the topic this week is identity. You guys figure out how to add a node? Oh yeah, there you go.
I thought I did.
Yeah, you double click and then you start typing, and if you've added yourself before, you'll show up in search results. Otherwise, just type your name and choose an icon. I'm using the person icon, but you can use whatever icon you want.
It just disappears after I click on it.
Oh, try refreshing. Sometimes there's a little bit of glitchiness. And I'll put this week's topic.
There we go.
Cool. Oh, this will work. Oh yeah, it also is not showing up for me. I have to refresh as well. There we go. Cool, and let's, the center shows up when you first load the page, so let's spread out a little bit. What we've been doing is playing our turns in the middle and then kind of moving them out. Sorry to move your piece. And then, oh, not quite that far. Because you're not on the screen as much anymore. Well, that works. Yeah, and then moving them out when we play more stuff. And yeah, if you guys want, you can both start a personal deck. I have a personal deck where I keep a lot of beads that I've saved from different games. So then I have a library. It's upside down. Can you see that? That's a weird bug. Robert Best will get a kick out of that. Okay, so who'd like to go first? And all we're doing is we're just taking turns playing nodes or beads with a topic to discuss. And then about halfway through the game, so in about 30 minutes, we'll do a pivot and we'll go into one conversation in more detail, or maybe 2 or 3 topics in more detail.
I'll go ahead and place one then.
Go ahead. Reputation, good idea. Cool. And why don't we just go clockwise? So I'll play something.
I don't see Tristan's node.
Oh, try refreshing the page. I can see it. Yeah, once we get all kind of synced in, I think it works consistently. All
right, now I see.
Cool. I put personal passions. For me, these are close to identity. Oh, and you can also draw a line connecting the things you play back to your name. You hold Alt and you drag between two beads.
Once again, how do you do a connection line?
Hold Alt or on Mac Options and then drag between two nodes. And then you can name the connection if you want. Is that working?
Yes, yes. Yes.
Cool. Cool. And yeah, and Victor, it's your turn. Are you playing? Yeah, you played personality kind of before, and also with parents. Cool. Yeah, and it's okay to play multiple things at the same time as long as they're kind of one conceptual cluster.
All right, so do I go again?
Yeah, we're doing kind of breadth first, where we're spreading out to a lot of potential topics, and like I said, we'll drill down later. Cool, and go ahead and announce what you play too, to draw our attention to it.
Yeah, I'll just put down social currency.
Cool. Yeah, and if you want to say a sentence or something like that, that's always fine too, or not, either way. Cool, I'm putting identity as a member of an organization. That's definitely an aspect of identity, how people think about that.
I'm deciding on my turn. I'm putting in social structure. I'm trying to follow the web of my thought and not to think about it a lot, and maybe later on the sense might arrive.
Yeah, I'm in the same place. I'm just getting out some initial thoughts. Tristan, would you like to go?
Yep, I'm putting down humanity, I guess, but with like sort of an emphasis on like the transhuman question, I guess.
Cool, that's interesting. So I'm putting art I create as a part of identity. And for me, that's closely related to passion. Anything that people create materially, I consider art.
I'm adding visions. And may I ask, can I connect with your nodes as well?
Yeah, yeah. Usually we don't bother to ask about that, but
okay.
Yeah.
So
go ahead. Yeah.
In this way.
You just put down social structure, right?
Yes, I did put it around before.
Okay. All right. One moment. I'm thinking. All right. I'm putting down attestations, sort of a component to reputation, but you get attached to identity.
Is that things people say about themselves or things other people say attached to?
I would say both.
Yeah. I was just thinking about that from the problem I was telling you guys about. This topic, identity, is super generative. It's really interesting what's coming up already. Thinking of trust metrics. I'm adding that right now. Let's see there. I'm gonna put mine way over, or I guess here it works actually. Actually, I'm doing.
Past few days, I've been thinking a lot of space theory by Ami Baba. It was kind of post-colonial philosopher, and it keeps arriving to me again and again. So I will add this note.
Interesting. Oh, would you put a node for that author as well? Do we have a name? Would you put a node for that author as well, that thinker?
Of course.
Yeah.
Just need to check pronunciation.
Yeah.
I'm going to put down integrity. Sort of both like abstract, like integrating all these different features into one thing, but also like the sort of the more moral, like normative use of the word as well, tying into like trust and attestations.
Interesting. Thinking about cluster of things actually. Self-actualization. That's the icon I was going to choose too. Someone else already chose it.
Nice.
And then there's, yeah, or at least one of those green icons close to that. And then related to that, mythic identity. And then actually a third thing related to that for me is healthy mythic identity, or like kind of like unhealthy projections. There. You know, like it's healthy to identify as, it's relatively healthy to identify as something like a magician or a wizard, because those are humanizing archetypes. It's unhealthy to identify as like a god, generally, that kind of thing. So there are different images that have different implications for psychological health.
Am I going this round? Because technically I did 2 notes.
Oh yeah, no, go ahead. If you want to play a little group of nodes, if they're closely related for you, you can do that just on one turn. Yeah, as long as it, you know, just don't go on forever. But yeah, it's your turn, Victor.
Yes, right. I'm going with this one. I'm going to add it to integrity.
Interesting.
Because when that happens, then there is no integrity.
Yeah.
I'm not sure which may be.
Gonna add in belief, pretty close to attestations.
This is really interesting. Oh, and it's my turn already. Let's see. I'm thinking about alchemy, the alchemy of passion. I'm going to add one more to storytelling related to alchemy.
Not sure if this word was here before. No, it wasn't. So I'm adding projections. Lot of our identity is a projection from what we have seen, what we have experienced.
Projections. It's really upside down. That's funny. My personal deck, if you look at the video,
Oh god.
it's just, yeah, it's really upside down. But it's fine now.
Gonna add in sort of just like secret society in between.
What I was just thinking.
Really?
Basically, yeah, no, I was thinking about, yeah, an identity as like a secret agent in a decentralized ecosystem.
I'm having issues putting it down, and I'm gonna refresh real quick.
Okay.
Shit. Um, all right. Go down closed societies, secret societies, whatever, same deal.
Where's that?
It's in between
Oh.
alchemy and identity.
Oh, okay. It's not showing up for me.
The
I'll
member of
refresh
an
also.
organization. So what
Yeah.
is software in principle? This is frustrating.
Yeah, it's really beautiful, and it's the only mind mapping software I've used that doesn't lag my browser ever. It's a little glitchy. They want to re-implement it on Holochain, and if they do, I think that'll eliminate like all of the glitchiness because of the immutable memory. There, I can see your closed societies
Assuming
now.
it's not a front end issue, but
They'll at least make
let's
it
hope and
easier to
pray.
resolve it if it's a front end issue too. Yeah,
Mhm.
it might be a front end issue. Cool. So I'm adding identity as an agent within a decentralized secret organization, and I'll pop that between these ones. Let me just look at it.
I'm adding desire because usually it's what drives visions, and it can mod identity quite well.
Yeah.
Or maybe I will change the order.
My story icon stopped working. Well,
I'm adding in resilience, and I'll link it to the healthy versus unhealthy identifications.
mm-hmm. And add desire as productive, which is from Deleuze.
Oh yes, I'm a fan of the rules.
Oh, cool. And I'll throw Deleuze up too, so people have that reference. Nobody's added Deleuze before.
Regarding projections, I feel there is a certain instrumentalization of what we see, what we comprehend, and through that instrumentalization, then we project our identity from the external world. So it's like for me, the concept of projections, it's very closely related to language.
Uh-huh.
I will just add that.
Yeah.
And maybe the sense will arrive later on.
I'm drawing a blank.
Okay, you can pass. When we all pass,
Yeah.
we can go on to the next part of the game.
All right, I'll pass.
I'm gonna actually connect mythic identity here. See? Okay, I put telling the story of our transpersonal mythic identity, and I'm gonna connect that to mythic identity, humanity plus storytelling, and desire is productive. And I'll throw in alchemy too.
I will add that instrumentalization point. I like how you, Anders, chose the path of more metaphysical approach somehow. I'm not sure that's what I'm feeling.
Yeah, well, and it plays well with if you're taking a more concrete approach.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put in personas.
Yeah. You guys know your stuff. Bringing in all kinds of interesting like psychology and theory and fundamental concepts like desire.
All right, I put in personas up sort of near the top right.
Mm-hmm. I'm putting where do mythic imagos come from? Connecting that to personas and this one I did last turn. maybe in between that would be in 4 minutes. When we transition to the next part of the game, maybe we can take a few minutes to like spread this out a little bit and untangle it. There's some crisscrosses we could undo. But that privileges the more connected nodes, which I just made 2 of them. Did you just add something, Victor?
Yes, I'm wondering if I'm going to go full Jacques Lacan. Maybe let's add a few notes here. So
cool.
Instrumentalization, when instrumentalization of language happens, that's very closely related to the psychotic clinical structure.
Interesting. Psychotic what?
The psychotic clinical structure. That's a part of so-called Lacanian nosology, and I'm going to extract Lacan as well.
Cool. What's nosology? Nosology.
There is a certain triad of clinical structures. You have like psychotic, neurotic, and pervert, and those clinical structures define your relationship to your own desires, how you perceive your desires, what drives you, and so on. How do you address your own incentive desires? What moves you? What drives you, etc. Very briefly.
Cool. So I'm putting like psychotic nodes. You're putting analytic nodes. Kristen, I don't know how to classify those in this system. Instrumentalization is one of my favorite words. It's a very critical word.
Why so?
Because just that concept, when you show that concept to someone, like that word is so powerful. Something that was not goal oriented and like used for a purpose. It's about means and ends, so it really makes that clear. It's a nice clean scalpel for showing when something is being used for an end.
I'll pass again.
Okay, I'll pass too.
I didn't add the icons yet, so I've been working on that.
Oh, that's okay. You can clean it up later. Take your time. Or yeah, you can do it now and take your time, or clean it up later. Up to you.
I do wonder what the difference is between objectification and instrumentalization sometimes.
Yeah, those are closely related.
But I feel like there is some kind of difference. I'm not sure what kind of difference it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think I could treat something as an object without necessarily instrumentalizing it. Unless you say I'm instrumentalizing it in relation to myself. But if you instrumentalize something, that will begin a process of objectifying it, definitely. And objectifying the end.
That's interesting what you said, because I felt all the time that objectification precedes instrumentalization, and at the end you say vice versa, like through instrumentalization, objectify.
Yeah, so, I guess at a lower level, objectification precedes it, yeah. Yeah, first there has to be the perception of an object before you can use that object as a tool.
Yeah.
Cool. Cool, so we're about halfway through the hour and a half I scheduled for this, and usually an hour and a half is a pretty good time for these games. So why don't we just chat for a few minutes and see if there's an area we want to dive into in more detail, and maybe develop more of a collective conversation moving on a topic. But I have to run to the bathroom. I'll be right back.
All right.
You guys go ahead and chat if you want, or whatever. I'll be right back.
Yeah.
Tristan, I'm not sure if I introduced myself to you.
Hey, yeah, I don't think we've met before.
Yes, it's true. I'm sorry about that. So I'm Victor. I do this thing I told about in the chat. It's called BrainEgg, and it aims to break the linear form of language. And basically, that's what we are doing right now.
Oh, I saw your post. Yeah, that's okay. Cool.
That's me. Happy to know you as well. I've noticed you. I think I was following you on Facebook already.
Quite possibly. Yeah, I mean, I've been really interested in like xenolinguistics, like sort of how to create new languages, open up to new languages, and sort of stack more meaning into our communication as well. So
Right.
I'm definitely interested in your project, and I do think there is some overlap with.
I feel there are a lot of overlaps.
Yeah. I've been more focused on sort of decentralizing biomedicine lately.
Decentralizing biomedicine.
Yeah, I've been
That,
getting into like with biohackers, like
yes.
independent scientists, and there's a
Yes,
huge need for it. It's really like
right, right. Mm. Yes, the pharma industry and all this stuff. Yes, I completely get where you are coming from. Yes.
yeah, they need to be disrupted for sure.
I feel like the disruption is happening already. Like we are in that process.
Yep, yep. Um,
It's slow. It starts. It's early on, but things are moving. I feel in the right way. They will explode sooner or later.
yeah.
That's my perception.
Okay.
I'm not in biomedicine.
Hi, Anders.
Hey,
I'll come back.
were you guys talking about this or just chatting?
Just chatting.
Cool. Okay, so what kind of like there's so many rich, different, deep conversations we could go into from here. Personally, I'm really excited about like this storytelling about mythic identity thing, but I'm always excited about that, so we don't necessarily have to go into that.
No, let's start with it.
I would be really curious about trying to like reconcile that with the decentralized reputation systems and sort of unpack
Oh,
how
that's
those
interesting.
can be related.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's actually really interesting. Cool. Yeah, so for this next part, we can the turns can be a little bit more freeform, and that'll allow us to go faster by jumping in with ideas, but still, we'll try and go around in turns to some extent, so we can all get a share of the time. But you just gave me an idea. Yeah, trust metric, and then like attestations related to badges or credentialing. Cool. And then are there any? Oh yeah. Okay. Never mind. Um, so I added this little cluster down here in the bottom right. Trust metrics. I'm going to do the connections. Attestations goes to trust metrics and
It's in this,
credentialing.
yeah.
Huh? Yeah.
Trust metrics is over here in the center.
Oh, you already added it. Thank you. Or no, I added that, didn't I? I forgot.
Yeah.
Let me just delete this one I just made.
And then I think attestations and credentialing could probably be seen as the same thing, or at least next to each
Yeah.
other.
Yeah. I see them as pretty much the same thing. But it's okay. It's okay to have synonyms like this. gonna make it the same icon then. Cool. Oh, you're building a whole structure over here. You've got
Just
pervert,
edit.
neurotic, psychotic. I see. Yeah, that's interesting. How do we square and projections? There's projections. I think projections are actually closely related to the whole mythic identity thing, and also to schizophrenia.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the schizophrenia is.
Do you mind if I make? You what?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I was saying that the schizophrenia is on the completely opposite sides, and no, I don't mind. Please move around, stuff as you leave.
Yeah. Maybe
Yep,
let's.
sure.
I'm going to start playing around with untangling some of the crisscrosses, because in theory, I think it's possible to. It's like a knot, and you can remove all of the crosses.
Mm.
So if you don't mind,
I'm kind of interested
play around
to hear
with that.
what do you. I'm kind of interested to hear what do you perceive as a mythic identity. What's the difference between identity and mythic identity? What's that mythic part?
Oh yeah. Well, as opposed to a like a historical or a mundane or a personal identity. So I'll make a note for that. So mythic identity means like I'm identifying as an archetype. It's the same as archetypal, identifying as an archetype or archetypal identity, which is usually unhealthy in general. But I think that in certain contexts, it actually is empowering as long as we maintain perspective. And it gives us access to collective storytelling faculties. Collective storytelling, the broken icon, and
so basically you are instrumentalizing the whole concept of identity. Am I correct?
maybe, yeah. Is that bad?
No, I'm not a judge. Just I'm trying to understand your meanings right here. Yes, but
Yeah.
what you are saying was that like you have certain archetypal identities, and I see them as like archetypal identity is truly a form for me because it's some kind of ideal. It doesn't it doesn't exist purely on its own, and like once it's different. Like usually people identify with certain or already existing concrete individuals or maybe concrete ways of like the mythic. That's deep stuff. Like that's like you are aiming somewhere. I'm not sure. Like.
Well, yeah, it's dangerous. I mean, identifying as a god, for example, can cause psychosis. There's a great book on
Yes,
that.
yes, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So yeah, so you need like safeguards and acceptable social processes. Like in Christianity, for example, they have church every week, and I think they subconsciously identify with God during those rituals, depending on how they're done. But it's within a collective space, so it's safe generally. what's his name? I forget, but yeah, there's a book. Do we have oh yeah, we have psychotic on here, but schizophrenia is our folder for psychosis right now. Yeah, I want to clean this map up. I feel like we'll be able to see more ideas if we untangle it a bit. I'm gonna try to do that.
I'm just a bit afraid that by untangling it while you are untangling it, maybe we can tangle it even more, you know.
Yeah, okay, maybe I won't.
I certainly have a issue with schizophrenia being so far away from the psychotic structure. But when I move all this, yeah, it's not really.
Yeah, just go ahead and move it. I'll move a few more to match it.
Okay.
Move this here. Oops.
Okay, yeah, I like resilience being near self-actualization more. That makes sense.
Cool.
I'm having this interesting experience about connections that I'm not really sure if one can think of connection as only there is a connection or there isn't a connection. Like uh, the brain, if you think in the case of brain in neural networks, that the connections are represented by the number, like how much something is connected, not if it is or isn't. Like for me, it feels like this is it. This is that idea put in the praxis. Like here, I feel like everything can be somehow connected. But if you connect everything at once, it doesn't really help that much.
Yeah, definitely. So it's super dense and it's a little bit of a rat's nest, and that's good. It means there's a lot of content to unpack. So what if we try to direct this a little bit, say, within the context of like a Holo and Holochain and that whole community? Maybe we can instrumentalize this conversation a little bit and give it some direction. We've got
Sounds good.
this whole mythic. We have some psychoanalysis. And how would you kind of lump together, group together overall what you're bringing to this conversation, Tristan?
Well, I can explain like where I've been working in this area, like intellectually, which is focusing on how to scale up the supply chains and sort of like the scientific data repositories using decentralized networks. So that's like reputation, attestation, like closed societies, these sorts of things. So that's I've been focused on like decentralized identifiers and webs of trust and all that sort of stuff, and sort of encompasses things I put around my name.
Awesome. Sorry, I'm having a cracker. Yeah, so we do mean exactly the same thing then. When you say attestation, I say credentialing. We mean, I think, identical concepts. And it sounds like you're thinking more of the technical implementation and also the like trust metrics, trust economy kind of logic of that, and how it might be implemented in blockchain, right? Or Holochain.
Yeah, I mean, it's seeming like Holo would be at least better for the data and being able to attest about did this therapy work, but certainly some of the stuff can be implemented on Ethereum and its kin as well.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Cool. So what if okay, so I see how these things can fit together. What if we talk about how to build technological platforms that help to create like a self-actualizing community with healthy identities, and do that using psychoanalytic principles?
That sounds perfect.
Sounds interesting.
So to start, maybe one we can think about is like the role of the healer. In this case, maybe it's a scientist, a researcher that has been able to create a new therapy, but it's not at the point where it's FDA approved, right? So there's this sort of chasm in our in our belief in something when it's between the word of mouth and FDA approved, and people are still out there like operating in this chasm, but they're mostly in the dark, and it's hard to scale up, I guess, what they're doing.
Yeah, and there are so many facilitators and so many like kind of corporate culture or culture consultants, and there are so many like new age shamans who are doing basically black market psychiatry, but it's advertised as religion, and so many different things like that where it's a softer approach, and it's really hard to systematize it and approve it. And yeah, I wrote a paper. I had a problem with my PhD program with the administration, and they took my funding away ostensibly because of a poem that I wrote, because it was about, they said it was about violence against children, but what it was about was actually trying to was against violence against children, against subtle forms of violence. So I wrote this little like one-page paper that was announcing a poetry safety board, committee, a poetry safety committee, which would be tasked with constructing a poetry safety board. And they would have rating systems, and they would follow ethical, what are they called? Ethic review board protocol. And they would develop a pre-reading methodology where you could read a poem without actually reading it, so that they wouldn't be harmed by damaging poems and during their rating activity.
Wow, that's very elaborate way to get back at them. Huh?
Yeah. I didn't publish it. I just wrote it to blow up some steam. But but it gets at this idea where we have these vague methodologies that are, if they were done as a scientific study, they would have to be an ethical review board. But if they're done as a humanities or an interpersonal experience, then they can be under that legal radar, kind of, or at least the radar of rigor, which is problematic. What do you think, Victor?
Sorry, what do I think on what exactly?
Oh, this whole turn in the conversation where I suggested we talk about building platforms for self-actualizing communities with healthy identities, and including psychoanalytic concepts and how we frame and talk about that.
It's I've seen so many approaches. I've seen so many efforts in trying to create something like this, and even like in my more psychological, psychoanalytical perspective, it's it's quite complicated.
All right, just hop in. Feel free to interrupt us while we're discussing this further than with psychological perspective or whatever perspective.
Okay, all right. I feel one thing that like if one is designing a system, like there are certain assumptions about people who are going to participate in it, and somehow I feel this kind of approach is always destined to fail. I feel like the best kind of system you can make is the one in which you keep telling about the most significant vulnerabilities of the system to people themselves. Like the best system is the one in which each individual knows the most precarious vulnerability of the system, in which each individual knows how to destroy the whole system. Then it is a perfect system, because if it stays, no individual has an incentive to destroy it, and then it is a perfect system. And maybe destroy is a intense word, but maybe alter the system in a significant way. That might be better.
Interesting. Will you make a node for that? That concept?
Of the unbreakable system, or okay,
yeah.
I will make
in the part where everyone knows the vulnerability.
Oh wait, here by resilience down here.
Oh okay. Yeah.
Resilience. Yes, let me think of words to somehow define it. I'm going to put multiple here.
Sure.
How do I remove a node?
Right click it, and then you can either remove it from this map or delete it completely.
Right click.
Someone selected part of the map
Oh,
and is dragging it around. Are you in? Oh yeah, you must have held shift. So just click somewhere to cancel the selection.
Okay, I'm clicking, but nothing is happening. All right, I'm going to.
It's not canceling the selection.
Refresh.
Yeah.
I'm going to refresh
yeah, no problem.
Okay, so right and delete. Okay, got it. Yeah.
Well, I just tidied it up a bit. It's fine. Oops. That's weird. I'm gonna refresh too. Oh, MetaMaps is kind of glitchy today. A bunch of the icons are no longer working for me. I will I'll let Robert know about the bug.
Okay, I guess I got it somehow.
Cool. Cool. Yeah, education on the vulnerability of the system in order to have constant revolution. That's awesome.
I'm going to add icons.
Did the icons disappear for you too? Just me?
Not yet.
They're just question marks for me.
Yes, there are question
okay.
marks. I'm saying I'm going to add icons on those four.
What am I icons? Oh no. I just cleared my browsing data and my saved application data, hosted app data, and all the icons are missing for me. Not just some of them. So I'll troubleshoot that after this call. Yeah. There were a few missing, and now all of them are missing after I cleared the. I probably need to just like restart my browser, restart my computer. Maybe I'm out of hard drive space from recording this session. I think it would tell me though. Oh no, I have hard drive space. Anyway, yeah, Victor, that's a really interesting model. How does that connect with collective identity or collective storytelling, that kind of thing, or individual identity?
How does the collective identity and storytelling connects to the to the sort of system you were trying, you've been talking about, to my understanding.
Or just in general to collective identity or identity as part of a group. Any of the concepts related to identity.
So to me, it's always rather what not about what is, but about what not is, and I feel such to arrive at such system, the the friction of storytelling has to be the lowest, and the identity therefore has to be somehow the most. It has to have the most possible freedom it can attain. So both horizontally and vertically, like it cannot be limited and restricted by the external structure of society, and it also cannot be limited and restricted by the way in which a person acquires resources. And I'm specifically thinking about information and knowledge. Like for me, of course, there's the topic is returning constantly, that the information and knowledge written in a form in there is that kind of friction, and if that friction is completely removed or significantly lowered, one can mold more in a more fluid way between different identities. Yes, and that kind of relates to that schizophrenia thing, maybe.
Yeah, interesting. Would you add a node for that molting or that greater possibility of fluidity, or maybe multiple nodes if you want?
I will try.
Would someone like to share their screen? I restarted my browser, but its icons are still not showing up. So maybe someone could share it with the icons.
Yeah, I'll do that. 1 second.
Okay. Yeah, we've got about 10 minutes left. So in about 5 minutes, let's start shutting the game down. Yeah, I really want to hear a little bit more of both of your perspectives in the next 5 to 7 minutes.
There we go. All right, I think I've got it. Oh.
Cool. Yeah, I can see it. It's not all messed up like mine.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess part of what I've been thinking about is sort of how we have given away this ability for transformation to other sort of like centralized agencies. And I see like Holo and other distributed systems as like a means for taking back that sovereignty over self-transformation. Criminalizing, psychotherapy that's outside of, the APA or whatever, and of course just other issues with the FDA and big pharma are taking away the ability for people to heal themselves, and we just sort of offload it onto other actors. And so like they're going into like the transformation, the alchemy. It's like even like I'm on this quest for curing my own HIV, right? And it's messed up because even if I did accomplish that, nobody would believe me, right? Like the public would not believe me, right? It's so firmly entrenched as being impossible that it's gonna take a huge amount of attestations to be able to like reverse that. So
that's a really interesting and horrible thing. Yeah. Have you had any success?
I'm fairly confident that there are dozens of people who have had success, but there hasn't been a long-term, wide breadth study. So until that happens,
Okay.
all of these people are like, you know, they don't fit with the narrative, so they don't exist.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I would totally be interested in helping on that project and like researching, maybe interviewing people or collecting records, that kind of thing. That's awesome.
Yes, so like that's really where I'm going towards, is like having attestations from labs that maybe do the diagnostic work, or maybe just public figures who can speak to something having happened, and that way you don't have to have $10 million to be able to like prove that something happened or didn't happen, which seems to be the current
Yeah.
status quo.
Yeah, interesting.
Could you get more into what other sort of intersection between these mythic identities and healthy decentralized communities that you can think of,
Um,
besides healer and someone who's been transformed?
oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I see these, uh, normally we're forced to accept this one body, one person idea, and that is a social construction, and it's one of the more healthy forms for a person to take, but it's not necessarily the only form. So anyway, so like the way that language is controlled in public discourse, and the way that certain types of language are visible and certain other types are not visible, this delimits the possibilities of our social personality, our social identity, and how we can talk about ourselves in public. So what I want to do is open up the possibilities and provide safe, healthy public scaffolding for people to publicly play with each other and have non-standard language and identities that are coordinated, so that it's not just like people flying off into psychosis, but it's actually public mass psychosis, where people can. But the most important thing for me here is that the using this archetypal language allows us to participate in a collective identity in a way that helps us to align with other people, and it's fun. It's kind of like playing a game. And I think that people used to do this, and people also do this in religions, but there's no secular way to do this right now. There's no secular way to build a mythic identity unless there's a real sense of cheesiness about it. Like, we're going to be, warriors for activism, or like we're going to be, warriors for Hillary Clinton, that kind of thing. And yeah, so see, that's just like a little bit of how I'm thinking about it, is that we can create new powerful language for forming collective agreement and forming healthy group dynamics if we allow in the mythic component.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask Victor, let me remember my question. How do you see these? Do you think it's even possible to build tools that to build like software tools and kind of social scaffolding tools that can support healthy identity or healthy experimentation with identity? And if so, what might that look like?
Could you please specify in this context what you are referring to as healthy identity?
I don't know, whatever you think healthy identity is.
I heard you already, but just in this context.
Just self-actualization, a healthy adult identity.
Okay, like the healthy development of identity.
Yeah, a healthy person that understands himself as a limited person, but also
all right,
maybe in
there is a way, but I feel like I feel like the core of it lies somewhere in the spectrum of language, and it cannot be. to trigger such self-actualization, you cannot impose a knowledge on someone, like telling that person that here's who you are and here's how the world works, because like that's too much. That's exactly what psychoanalysts try to avoid. But there has to be that interaction, that feedback loop of growing, and I feel that's what the media of our language nowadays is lacking, because I feel the interactivity, the concept of interactivity, and that kind of breakage of linearity can be some kind of a trigger to that self-actualization. If that answers your question.
Can you say that one more time? The breaking of our collective identity?
No. I was saying breaking of the linearity of the language, and putting that concept of interactivity. So the language is not a mere static archivation of knowledge, but it reflects your subjective experience of the world. That, I believe, can ultimately trigger some sort of deeper and more profound self-actualization process.
Interesting. I agree. So it sounds like you do. I mean, you're building your thing with the words and moving and spacing across the page. So it sounds like you do think it's possible to build tools that can help with these processes.
It is. I believe it is possible. It depends in what kind of time frame we are talking about.
Yeah. Cool.
I feel it's a question of decades at least.
Yeah, it's very difficult. But that's a good segue, because we're just hitting the hour-and-a-half mark now. So let's shut down the game, and then we'll play again next week, probably next Friday. And right. If either of you would like to join the Doge team, the Decentralized Organizing Games effort or experience team, we also have a weekly team game, usually Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. And those are a little bit faster paced, and they go into more depth, and they're more intense. And usually the topic is more towards being about the game itself, because we're retooling the game and developing new ideas of how to run the public game. And you guys, this was a really awesome, really fun generative conversation, so I'd love to have you both there if you want to do that.
Thank you for
having me. Okay, so here's how. Yeah, it's been a pleasure. And I hope to talk more about our ideas about words too.
Sure.
Yeah. Interesting. Maybe we can talk about the HIV attestation research project, because that sounds really, really noble and amazing. And there might be real research there that we can find, and maybe you've already found.
Yeah, already working on it.
Cool.
Yeah, let's talk more.
Awesome. Yeah. So how to shut down the game. I would recommend, if you guys want to keep playing, to start your own personal deck. So you just make another meta map for yourself and call it, personal deck or my personal deck or whatever you want. And then you can copy the beads that you liked best from this game, whether they're yours or someone else's. You can copy those into the other meta map. And the way you do that is, they've already figured it out. When you start typing a new node, a search box pops up underneath, and then you can click that and you'll pull up any beads from the entire system. So if you go to your other map, you can just search and add each of the things that you want to add one by one, and then connect them up how you want on your personal deck. And then you start to develop this really dense resource of ideas that you are familiar with that you can bring into future games. So I'll make a copy of this, and wait, no. What I'm going to do is actually change this to public. So if you guys want to make any edits now, you'll have to request access, and I'll get an email and give you access. But this will just prevent other people from coming in and like messing up what we did and deleting stuff.
All right.
But anyone can still see it. So yeah, you can copy things if you want, and we don't need to really shut this down because we're not going to reuse this same board next week. We're going to use a different one.
Alrighty.
Cool. Yeah, thank you so much for coming. Are there anything else before we go? Questions, thoughts?
Looking forward to that decentralized key public infrastructure. I tell you what.
Yeah, me too. Emmeline just wrote an article on that on our Medium. Cool. So I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you so much.
Alrighty.
Bye, listeners.
Bye.